Hello and welcome back to the Crypto Bootcamp. This is Module 6 and we'll be finishing up our education on how to buy cryptocurrency, and more importantly, and what we're going to cover in this module is how to transfer it. And essentially why you need to do this is because a lot of the fiat brokers that we talk about, the Coinbases of the world, when you buy from them, you're going to get Bitcoin or Ethereum or, one of these major cryptocurrencies. But as you'll quickly find when you get more into cryptocurrency, there's thousands of cryptocurrencies out there. So if you are intending on investing in something a little bit smaller, and we'll cover this in a later module about how to look at the crypto market from a macroscopic scale, but if you want to look at something smaller than Bitcoin, if you want to look at something that potentially represents more risk, but also more reward if it, pans out, then that's where you want to get into trading cryptocurrency. And I know we covered in earlier parts of this course that we're not going to cover trading. And what I mean by trading in this sense is that we're going to exchange our Bitcoin for this smaller cryptocurrency or Ethereum or whatever. What you'll quickly find is that Bitcoin and Ethereum serve as the base pairs for most trading in the cryptocurrency sphere. Essentially, Bitcoin is the universal currency in cryptocurrency. So you can trade it for just about anything under the sun in the crypto space. So it serves as one of the best things you can hold in your portfolio simply for the reason that you can exchange it for just about anything else. So if you're following me so far, I know this is a little bit confusing at first, but it will make sense as you get more practice with it. What you're essentially doing is you've traded your fiat currency, your US dollar or whatever you have, into, let's say, Bitcoin. And now we're going to trade that Bitcoin into a smaller coin. And unfortunately, there isn't an option currently for you to go from your fiat currency into that very small, what is called an altcoin. Instead, you have to go through this medium, that being Bitcoin. And that's sort of the state of the crypto space right now. That will definitely change in the future. It will become a lot easier to do so. But this kind of represents your opportunity to get in before it's made easier for other people. You go through the pain and the hardship now of learning how to do this, and it represents a huge, massive opportunity for you to get in before sort of the investing herd arrives. Now, as we'll cover later on in this module, Bitcoin isn't exactly the best coin to buy off a fiat broker because it represents the longest transfer times, and it sometimes has the highest fees. What you'll often do instead is buy something like Ethereum or Litecoin, which is able to transfer between these exchanges much faster and for less fees. But for now, we'll just talk about Bitcoin because it's simple to talk about. You don't need to do some additional currency conversion once you get to the other exchange. For example, if you bought Ethereum, then you would need to convert it into Bitcoin to get the certain cryptocurrency you're looking for. So hopefully that makes sense in a conceptual way. But yeah, for right now, let's talk about Bitcoin. We just bought Bitcoin as we saw in the last module. So now what I recommend you do is sign up with Binance. Now, Binance is the biggest, what is known as an altcoin exchange. And this is where trading is strictly crypto to crypto. They're going to change that in the future. They'll have the ability to take fiat just like Coinbase. But for now, this is sort of the state of things as I just kind of talked about. So Binance is where a lot of cryptocurrency trading happens. It's where a lot of people trade Bitcoin for a smaller cryptocurrency, or they do a lot of day trading type of activities on Binance. It's sort of the crypto exchange. It's the one that everybody knows about. It's the biggest one in the world. And so it's free to sign up. You need to go through the same sort of process that you went through for Coinbase. Just go through the KYC process. It's pretty simple. And once you're done, you'll have a Binance account. So now we have a Coinbase account and now we have a Binance account. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna transfer our Bitcoin from our Coinbase account to our Binance account so that we can buy, or rather invest in an altcoin. So here we see the main screen for Binance. When you log in, this is what you see. And what I want you to do is select funds at the top right here, and you'll see there's a drop-down menu, and then select deposits, because we're going to deposit the Coinbase Bitcoin into our Binance account. So now you need to look for BTC, which is the ticker code for Bitcoin. You see it comes up there. Now what you'll need to do is create a wallet. It will give you that option and just should take a second or two. Now we'll switch back over to Coinbase Pro. So now what we're going to do is similar to the process we used to get our USD onto Coinbase Pro from our Coinbase account. You can see that we have 0.28 Bitcoin after we went through that process in the last module. So now what I'll do is I'm going to jump over to one of my favorite sites, CoinGecko. And I want to transfer $900 worth of my Bitcoin. If you remember, we bought about $3,000 worth of Bitcoin in the last module. So what I'll do is convert 900 into BTC. And this is a real-time valuation of how much that $900 is worth in Bitcoin. Obviously, it fluctuates all the time. So what I'll do is I will copy up to the 8th decimal place of the Bitcoin amount. This is the most that Binance will accept or Coinbase Pro. I'll copy that and then I'll switch back over to Coinbase Pro. Now what I'll do is click the withdraw button and you can see it's going to ask me, okay, which currency do you want? I'm going to select Bitcoin. I'm going to paste in the amount I just copied, and you can see it's actually not 900 on this site because Coinbase has a little bit different price than CoinGecko, but whatever. I'll jump back over to Binance, copy my address, and paste that in here. So you want to make sure that you get this exactly right because once you send a transaction, there's no undoing it. So it's a little bit different than maybe other monetary transactions you're used to. Once I'm sure that everything is good, I will click the big withdraw button, and now I have to enter the two-factor verification code on my smartphone. Okay, that's all good. I'll hit withdraw funds. Great, the withdrawal from my Bitcoin has been submitted. So now it's a little bit of a waiting game because we don't exactly get that Bitcoin in our Binance account immediately. So what I'll do is I'll go over in the top right here to see exactly what's going on with this transaction, this transfer of funds from Coinbase Pro to my Binance account. So if I click in my wallets here, you can see that I've got some withdrawals, and the very first one here is the one we just submitted. So there's some information here, but basically what I'm most concerned about is the transaction hash. And if I click on this, it will take me to Block Cipher, which is sort of a repository of information. You can see that this transaction is still relatively new and has not been confirmed 6 times. And so that's sort of the mining confirmation process inherent to Bitcoin and blockchain. And we don't really need to get into that. But what we do need to know is that it will take 2 confirmations to get to Binance. Binance, that's what they set. Exchanges will differ on how many confirmations they want for a transaction. But to see how long that will actually take, we'll jump over to bitinfocharts.com. And this is really not necessary. You don't need to do this every time you're going through one of these transactions, but it helps to kind of know what's going on. So there's a lot of information here. This is always being updated and whatnot. But what we're looking for is sort of the average block time, because what we want to see is how long an average block is, and we'll basically multiply that times 2 because we're looking for 6 confirmations or 2 confirmations for Binance. And what we see is it's 11 minutes and 26 seconds. And so if we multiply that by 2, it will take about 23 minutes for that Bitcoin transaction to be loaded onto our Binance account. So you can see it still hasn't even been received by my Binance account just yet. So unfortunately, there's not much you can do here. And this is what I was talking about earlier with how Bitcoin is kind of the slowest currency you can use. And it's also going to charge fees. You know, for that transaction we did, it was probably maybe $1 or $2 in fees to do it. But what you'll find is I use Litecoin and Ethereum more often than not to do this sort of transfer from my Coinbase to my Binance because it's cheaper and it's faster. So we're going to skip ahead in time, and here we go. We can see that the 0.13 Bitcoin completed the deposit on my Binance account. So now I want to trade that Bitcoin. I want to convert that Bitcoin into an altcoin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to exchange, and then I like to use the advanced one. You can pick which one you like better, but I think advanced is just easier to use actually. So we can see here, this is sort of the trading interface, and there's a lot going on here, so don't feel too overwhelmed. But what you need to know is click on this little tab right here, and it'll be a drop down, and you can see we got that 0.13 Bitcoin balance. So what we need to do is search for the coin that we want to buy, making sure that we're under the correct denomination. In this case, it's Bitcoin, BTC. So I'm going to search for Poly, which is Polymath, and you can see it's the Poly BTC pair. Poly BTC. So this is where we're going to trade our BTC for Poly. And in this case, all you have to do is I want to use the entirety of that 0.13 Bitcoin to buy, in this case, it's 4,378 Poly. And that's based on the top buy price, where it just automatically does it for you, and that's great. And you can kind of see the depth chart here shows us that there is a spread. There's a greater spread than what we saw on, for example, Coinbase Pro. It's still pretty narrow, but we are at the top of the stack. And so there we go. We got filled, and now we've converted our 0.13 Bitcoin. You know, it wasn't exact because we're dealing with inexact numbers here, but basically we got as best as we could for the amount that we had. So now we've converted our Bitcoin into Poly, and that is how you invest in smaller cryptocurrencies. That's how you go from having Bitcoin, or one of the bigger cryptocurrencies you get from a fiat broker, and using it on Binance. And there's a lot more to it, but that's the most that you need to know for right now. So what you need to do immediately after you get done with that is track it in an app like Delta. And so Delta is great because it lives on your smartphone and you can transfer in between devices. And what I'm showing you here is how to set it up on Windows as well. So you could input your data and it'll get reflected on your smartphone. So you're always seeing what's going on with your portfolio because it's a live feed. It will track in real time what's going on with the cryptocurrencies in your portfolio. So what you're going to use Delta for is you're going to plug in the exchange you bought the cryptocurrency from, what cryptocurrency you bought, how much of them, what was the current price based on, you know, what it's trading for right now. And yeah, once you get that in place, it will tell you in real time the dollar figure or whatever fiat you're using of your portfolio. It's really helpful, but I would recommend just checking it very infrequently because cryptocurrencies move so much over the course of even just a day that if you're watching it and just swiping down all the time, refreshing your portfolio, it's not going to do you any good. So I would not recommend that. Just check it infrequently and it will give you a couple push notifications per day. And that's really all you need to know for tracking your cryptocurrency portfolio. You know, stay on top of it. If you sell your assets, if you transfer them into something else, make sure you denote that in your portfolio so that it's always up to date. And it's just basically a real-time tracking of the life of your portfolio. And it's really helpful and it's really intuitive. And it's one of the best smartphone apps in the entire cryptocurrency space. So I highly recommend it. So I know that was a little bit of a swamp of information. It certainly is like drinking from a fire hose at first. I totally get that. But this is the process that it just currently is right now. It's not the most user friendly and it's not gonna exactly hold your hand through the process. But thankfully, it's really not that much more complicated than what I showed you. And honestly, just get some practice under your belt. The first time you're transferring an asset, use CoinGecko to, you know, send only $50 worth of Bitcoin at first, or, you know, just play with it. Just make sure that you understand what's going on before you send the entire amount, what you need to look for and how to move between exchanges. And honestly, once you get this down, you've conquered 90% of what being a cryptocurrency investor is and what you need to do, because transferring between exchanges, transferring between BTC to a smaller asset, that is a big deal. And it's a hard challenge to get over at first, but once you get it, you're gonna feel so accomplished and so, you know, on top of what's going on in the space. So, you know, I know it's a little bit tough, but I highly recommend you just take the time to practice through it and understand what's going on. And, you know, you'll get better at this, you'll get faster, you'll, you know, be able to act upon some stuff. And, you know, this is how you get better in this space, is just learn as much as you can, try with other exchanges. So what I'm gonna do for the rest of this video is I'm not gonna narrate the rest of my footage. I'm just gonna show you a couple other exchanges that I use, for example, Mercatox and KuCoin. And as we'll talk about in the next module, with regard to the cryptocurrency space, what you'll often find is that no one exchange has every asset out there. What you'll often have to do is go to certain different exchanges for certain different coins. And that can definitely throw some people for a loop. I definitely understand why that is a little bit tough to understand first, but this allows you to get on top of opportunities that other people aren't willing to go after or are ignorant to and just need, you know, they're gonna stick to their safe zones. And if you're willing to take the risk, if you're willing to be a little bit more of a riskier investor and go after those assets on smaller exchanges, you can get ahead of the investing curve because, you know, if a small asset on a small exchange gets listed on a big exchange like Binance, for example, that skyrockets the price because suddenly it gets access to a whole lot more volume and liquidity. So, you know, this is where I've made a lot of money just because I've been able to find assets before they're really mature and get in on them and buy a bunch of them before they get listed on bigger exchanges. And, you know, that isn't prominent these days, but it definitely still has its mark. It's definitely still a very valid strategy, and it's definitely still a very valid way of making money in the space. So in the next module, we're going to talk about how to become a crypto analyst, and specifically how to look at sites like CoinMarketCap and understand what's going on with the crypto market at a macro scale, and then be able to dive into smaller cryptocurrencies and understand what's going on with them and where they're trading and their price history and all sorts of stuff like that. So this will be a really good module for those who really want to get into fundamental analysis, something that I specialize in. So thanks for watching, and I'll check you in the next module.